Studebaker was once one of America's premier automobile manufacturers. Coincidentally, it also produced two incredible mansions. Hi everyone, Ken here. Hit the subscribe button and let's explore this house. In 1852, at just 21 years old, Clement Studebaker and his brother Henry opened a humble blacksmith shop in South Bend, Indiana, laying the foundation for what would become a transportation empire. The Studebaker brothers' workmanship proved exceptional. By the late 1850s and through the Civil War, their firm was filling wagon orders for the United States Army, fueling rapid growth. In 1868, the business incorporated as the Studebaker Brothers Manufacturing Company, and under Clement's leadership, it rose to the world's largest wagon maker. By the end of the 19th century, Studebaker wagons and carriages were renowned for their quality and durability, carrying pioneers westward and goods to market. This success positioned Studebaker uniquely to transition from horse-drawn vehicles to the new horseless carriage. Such accomplishments made Clement one of the Midwest's most prominent industrialists, and his prosperity was reflected in the grand residence he built for his family. In the 1880s, at the height of his success, Clement commissioned a palatial home befitting a Gilded Age titan. He purchased a sizable lot in South Bend, and in 1886 began construction of an elaborate mansion called Tippecanoe Place. Completed in 1889, the 26,000-square-foot residence was designed by Henry Ives Cobb in the Richardsonian Romanesque, featuring robust stone construction, rounded arches, a conical corner tower, and a sprawling, asymmetrical roofline. Inside its 4 stories were 40 lavish rooms filled with fine woodwork and modern conveniences of the era. Clement and his wife Anna welcomed dignitaries and friends to Tippecanoe Place, showcasing the wealth that the wagon business had brought them. Clement lived to enjoy the showpiece home for only a dozen years. In 1901, after months of ill health, he passed away at age 70, having led Studebaker to the threshold of the automobile age. After Clement's passing, his family, including his son George and daughter Anne, continued to reside at Tippecanoe Place, maintaining the mansion and its traditions into the next generation. While the Studebaker firm was born of frontier grit, its later fortunes would be guided by a southerner with financial acumen and modern ideas, Albert Russel Erskine. Born in 1871 in Huntsville, Alabama, Erskine had humble origins and a minimal formal education. He proved a prodigy in business, working his way up from railroad office boy to chief bookkeeper by his mid-20s. By 1911, Studebaker, now fully engaged in automobile manufacturing, recruited Erskine for his financial expertise. He joined as treasurer and swiftly rose through the ranks, becoming president of the Studebaker Corporation in 1915. Erskine's tenure coincided with the boom of the early automotive industry and the roaring prosperity of the 1920s. A dynamic leader, he steered Studebaker with bold vision. He encouraged development of small, sporty cars modeled on European trends, and even launched a namesake line, the Erskine Automobile, in 1926 as a compact, affordable model. Erskine also led Studebaker to expand its empire by acquiring luxury automaker Pierce Arrow in 1928, aiming to compete in every segment of the car market. By the late 1920s, Studebaker was flying high, its stock was strong, its president feted as an industry leader, and its future seemingly boundless. During these boom years, Albert indulged in building a residence to match his status. In 1919, he purchased 600 acres of wooded, rolling land on the south side of South Bend. There, Erskine personally planned a prestigious residential development and set aside a prime hilltop for his own mansion. By 1921, his palatial Erskine Manor was completed, designed by the South Bend architectural firm of Austin and Chambleau. The mansion was one of the largest and most elegant homes in Indiana, a rambling estate house nestled among manicured gardens and private woodlands styled in a blend of neoclassical elegance and 1920s glamour. Inside, the home's interiors were richly appointed. A grand foyer with a sweeping staircase, ornate wood-paneled libraries, and ballroom-sized entertaining spaces, all filled with fine art and furnishings reflecting Erskine's wealth. By the decade's end, Erskine Manor stood as a symbol of Studebaker's roaring 20s zenith, just as Tippecanoe Place had embodied the wagon-era triumphs. However, the fortune that built Erskine's mansion rested on an auto industry vulnerable to boom and bust. In October 1929, the stock market crash and ensuing Great Depression put an abrupt end to the roaring prosperity. For a time, Erskine fought to keep Studebaker profitable. He even maintained generous stockholder dividends in the early 30s, trying to project confidence. But as car sales plummeted, these payouts drained the company's reserves. By early 1933, Studebaker was in a dire cash flow crisis and defaulted on its loans, forcing the venerable firm into receivership. Erskine, who only years before was hailed as a genius of industry, now saw his achievements collapsing. He was removed from the presidency as new managers and courts took charge of reconstructing the company. The personal toll on Erskine was immense. He had poured his life into Studebaker, and much of his personal wealth was tied to it. Now its stock was worthless, and he found himself buried in debt. On the night of June 30th, 1933, inside his beloved mansion, Albert Erskine ended it all at 62 years old. His passing coincided with a broader changing of the guard. 1933 was the same year that Clement Studebaker's son George lost Tippecanoe Place due to his own financial bankruptcy, severing the Studebaker family's ownership of their patriarch's mansion. An era of grand homes and unchecked optimism had drawn to a close. After Erskine's passing, a group of investors and managers led by Harold Vance and Paul Hoffman reorganized Studebaker under court supervision. In a citywide celebration in 1935, Studebaker emerged from receivership and resumed full production. Against the odds, the company survived the 1930s and soon found new life. During World War II, Studebaker contributed to the arsenal of democracy by building military trucks and the famous weasel-tracked vehicles for the U.S. military. The late 1940s and early 1950s saw Studebaker produce icons like the Starlight Coupe and the sleek 1953 Starliner hardtop, which were praised for their avant-garde styling. However, behind the scenes, the independent automaker struggled with thin profit margins and an aging factory. In 1953, Studebaker merged with the Packard Motor Car Company in hopes of creating a stronger combined firm, but the Studebaker-Packard venture faltered. By 1963, facing persistent financial woes, Studebaker shut down its massive South Bend plant, ending over a century of vehicle production in the city that had been synonymous with the Studebaker name. The company's last automobiles were built at a smaller satellite factory in Hamilton, Ontario, until the final Studebaker rolled off the line in March of 1966. After 114 years in the transportation business, Studebaker's storied journey came to an end. The grand homes of Clement Studebaker and Albert Erskine have stories of their own that continued long after the original owners were gone. In 1970, a preservation-minded organization, Southwold Restorations, acquired Tippecanoe Place, recognizing it as a priceless piece of local history. They undertook careful restoration to revive the mansion's 19th century glory. Thanks to these efforts, Tippecanoe Place was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1973 and declared a National Historic Landmark in 1977. The grand old house found new life as a venue for fine dining. Beginning in the 1980s, it opened as Tippecanoe Place restaurant, allowing visitors to enjoy a meal amid the oak paneling, stone fireplaces, and stained glass elegance of Clement Studebaker's former home. Generations of locals and tourists have since walked through its heavy double doors to dine and marvel at the architecture. As of today, Tippecanoe Place remains one of South Bend's most celebrated historic landmarks, lovingly preserved and operated as an upscale restaurant and brewery in the very rooms where the Studebaker family once lived. The story of Erskine Manor took a different turn, one marked by change and adaptation. The property was sold to the Sisters of the Holy Cross, a Catholic order who saw in the grand estate an opportunity for education and retreat. The sisters converted Erskine's mansion into a religious facility called Morone Manor, and soon the site became home to St. Mary's Academy for Girls, a private Catholic school. In 1980, a group of local developers purchased the remaining 60-acre estate with an eye towards creating an upscale residential enclave. They subdivided the lush acreage into a neighborhood of luxury homes, aptly named Erskine Manor, honoring the legacy of the land. Crucially, the developers chose to preserve Albert Erskine's mansion as the heart of the new community. The expansive residence was too large for a single family in modern times, so it was thoughtfully converted into condominium units, allowing multiple homeowners to share the historic structure. Today, Erskine's one-time palace is a private building, but its exterior retains the grandeur of the 1920s. A hidden architectural gem behind the gates of the Erskine Manor neighborhood. And with that, I'll turn it over to you. Which house was your favorite? Let me know down below in the comments section. And while you're there, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an exciting episode of This House.